But I'm going to be talking about something that I think is really cool. It's called RESTful architecture. And so what is REST? Well, it stands for Representational State Transfer. And so when would you use this? Say you have an iPhone app or an Android app, and you want to communicate to the server to receive information. You would use something like REST, and it handles client-server communications. But say you didn't know about REST, you would have to create some kind of protocol to contact the server. So say you send a request to the server, and it comes back with false. But what went false? So you'd have to come up with a bunch of identifiers of what went wrong, and that can get really complicated. So REST uses HTTP, which handles all of those for you. So why reinvent the wheel when HTTP exists? So there's four simple steps to REST. It requests, then it parses the URL, and performs an operation, and then responds to the client. And it uses the request and response format. So let's begin. So the request, the hypertext transfer protocol has four basic verbs that you can use. There's the get request, there's the post, there's the put, and then there's the delete. So get retrieves data. So say you have a user, you want to get user information. So get would retrieve that user information. If you want to create a user, you'd use post. If you want to update user data, like the name or the email address, you can use put. And if you want to remove that user from your database, you could use delete. And so it communicates. So receiving requests on the server side uses clean URLs. And so say you have your example.com, and and you want to edit it. So you go to example.com/users, and that would redirect it to index.php, because the index.php is going to analyze all of your code and what you're doing. And that's all through the htaccess file. The htaccess file will forward all your URLs to the index file. And the clean URLs are an example here. So you have your example.com, and that's going to be your index right there. And say you want to edit a user. So you go to example.com/user. And so you can send a put request to this, and that would retrieve all the users. Or if you go to example.com/user/12, that would get the information from 12. So what you have to do in the index file is actually parse this URL to get. This is called the root. This is what I call the root module here. So you have to get the root module, and then you have to get the parameters that you're passing. So that leads us to the next topic of parsing. So this is just some PHP code that's parsing. So you get the request URL here, you remove it of all white spaces, and then you explode it into an array based on your delimiter, which is the slash. And so you have to find the root. So the point of parsing is to find the root module and the parameters for that root module, because you can have multiple parameters. So you can have the user ID and I don't know, the email or something like that. But so this piece of code is, say you're in a subdirectory. So say you're in example.com/test/whatever. It's going to be hard to find. So this assumes that it's in a REST subfolder. So all of your code is in the REST subfolder. So you go through it until you find the REST subfolder, and then it assumes the next one's your root, and then all the parameters are assigned to all the rest of the pieces are assigned to the parameters already. Then you can break out of that. And then next. And then now you have to process the request. So you found your module, you found your root module, and then you have objects used to process the request. So you have a user module that used to process the request. And so you could have a user module, you could have I'm not sure, you can have like a login module, all that good stuff. But so you have to have and all those have something in common. They have to respond to a request, they have to respond to a GET request, they have to respond to a POST request, and that's the abstract parent module. So this is an abstract class that has all the methods in common, like the respond request, GET request, all that good information. So let's take a look at that abstract model. So this is the abstract model here, and you have two abstract functions that each module has to implement. So you have the GET response. So what happens when you send that GET request to it? and what happens when you send that post request to it. But then you have this basic function, which is implemented by all of the modules. And this takes in a method. It also takes in all the parameters. So the method is either put or post, or in this case. So you send it through, and if it's post, you call the post response, and if it's get, you call the get response. And that leads us to sending the response. So now you found out what response it is, and now you have to send the response back to the client. So you have the status header. So you have to set the header of the HTTP response. So you have the status. So this is where it would be that 404 error, 403, or 200, which is a success, and then you put in the body, which would be your response text. So that could be either XML. So if you're getting the user information, you can convert your database into an XML or JSON format, and then you just echo that out. So that's sending that back. And so an example of a test module or a user module would be this child class here. So this is just the user class. So you have that function post response, and you pass in the parameters. So you have you create the user. So you execute your SQL functions, and then you send that response saying the user was created. So you send a 200 saying, yeah, it worked. If it didn't work, then you maybe send a different error. But then the get response here, so you retrieve user data and return as XML or JSON format. So you would send the response, 200 user created, and then you would echo the data. So then that's, instead of in PHP, when you echo, you can echo it would normally be HTML format if you're working on websites, but you can actually echo all your XML format or JSON file. So so the client can read that data and then go on its way doing all that stuff. And then the process is really simple. You request, so the client requests information. You parse the URL to tell what they're trying to receive. You perform their operation, and then you respond with either user data or just a success or failure. And I think that's it. Do you have any questions?
So the name REST representation state transfer. I don't really understand where that came from.
Well, I'm not sure, but my best guess is REST is meant to create like a stateless transaction between the client and the server. So you're not using any sessions with PHP. So all the data that you have that the server needs is being sent in that request. So there's no states, I think. I think that might be where it's coming from, but I'm not 100% sure. Cool. Thanks so much.
Thanks.